Erin Brockovich is one of Julia Roberts' best movies. It follows the life of a smart young American woman with no husband and 3 young children. The movie has everything that a successful story needs. Lots of action, strong people, and a happy ending. But most surprising of all, Erin's story is true.
Erin was in trouble. She had no money, no job, no husband, and 3 young children. Life is difficult when you are a single mother. But Erin loved her young family, and she wanted to make their lives happy and comfortable. Day after day, she read the local newspapers and called for jobs. But every phone call and every interview was unsuccessful. It was time to try something new. Erin visited her lawyer, Ed Massery. "I'm smart, I'm hardworking, and I'll do anything," she told him. "Please give me a job." It was a strange way to find a job, but Erin did what she had to do. She wanted to be a good person and a good mother. Erin was not like the other office workers. She did not always speak politely, she did not wear dark suits, and she gave her opinions fearlessly. She worked hard, organizing papers into piles and boxes every day. But the work was too boring for a smart woman like Erin. Soon she started reading some of the letters in lawyers' papers to make her days more interesting. Erin was a careful worker, and she wanted to do her job well. One day she found some people's health papers in the same box as their house papers. This was unusual. "Why are these together?" she thought. "Maybe there's a mistake." She started looking at the big box of papers, one page at a time. It seemed that a large electricity company, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, PG&E, wanted to buy hundreds of houses in the small town of Hinckley, close to their electricity station. But why? More importantly, why were the homeowners' health papers in the same boxes? It was a mystery. Erin could not sleep that night. She was worried. Did PG&E want to hide something? Were the people of Hinckley safe? Erin was already a busy woman with her own problems. She had little time to worry about other people. But deep inside, Erin felt that something was wrong. Could she solve the mystery? She needed more information. The next day, she spoke to her boss, Ed. With his help, Erin started looking more closely at the papers. Erin discovered more and more strange papers in the Hinckley box. She realized that there was a serious problem. She loved her family, and she wanted to spend more time with them. She wanted to see her children grow up. But people in Hinckley were very sick, and only Erin knew about it. She wanted to help. So she bravely decided to solve the Hinckley mystery alone. Erin visited people in Hinckley and spoke to them about PG&E, their houses, and their health. She wanted to find the true story. Erin was not a lawyer. She was friendly and interesting, and the people of Hinckley liked talking to her. They told her that PG&E was a good company. It made their water safe, it paid for their hospital tests, and it offered good jobs. But Erin was not so sure. Erin always got what she wanted. Now she needed help and information. She was working alone, but this did not stop her. She called and visited scientists, doctors, and lawyers. She talked to anyone who could help her, and every day she worked hard. At last, she got the piece of information that she really needed. PG&E was poisoning the water near Hinckley. PG&E is one of the biggest companies in the U.S., and people liked and trusted it. But Erin realized that the company told lies. The water was safe, they said, but they were poisoning it. Erin was not important, famous, or rich. She was not even a lawyer, but she decided to fight against PG&E for the people of Hinckley. She knew that she had to help in every possible way. How many people were poisoned in Hinckley? Was anyone in danger? Erin returned to the town to find out. People knew Erin now. They trusted her and they talked honestly about their health problems. Hundreds of people in Hinckley had terrible illnesses, and some were dying. As Erin listened to the great problems and worries in these people's lives, she became very angry. PG&E knew that it was killing people. It was expensive to clean the water from its electricity station, so the dirty water ran into Hinckley's river and drinking water. Now the company wanted to buy the houses and keep the secret. It was not worried about the people who became sick. It was worried about possible payments to those people. Money was a big problem for Ed Massery, too, at this time. Erin's work was important. He knew that. But lawyers only get paid when they win. It was almost impossible for a small local law office to win against PG&E. Ed was afraid. But he was a brave man, too. He trusted Erin, and Erin's courage and hard work carried them through the most difficult times. From start to finish, Erin's work for the people of Hinckley took more than 5 years. During that long and difficult time, Erin and Ed made a great team. As Erin talked to different Hinckley people, her name and face became famous in the town. She had to be careful, though. She did not want PG&E to know about her work. As more people told their stories, Erin got the necessary information. She worked longer and longer hours. She still had a family to look after, too. Her body and mind were tired, but she knew that quick action was important. Finally, it was time to fight PG&E. Erin and Ed sent 634 notices for lawsuits from their small office to the large, expensive offices of PG&E. It was brave, but was it crazy? PG&E was a dangerous enemy. Was this the end for Ed's company? When PG&E received the notices for the lawsuits, its lawyers immediately realized the danger. The sick people of Hinckley wanted a lot of money from the company. More lawyers were brought in on both sides. The lawsuits were too big for Erin and Ed alone. But Erin continued to work on them. The Hinckley people were her friends now. She truly loved them, and she knew more about their lives and problems than anyone. So Erin, Ed, and the lawyers from other companies worked together to do their best for the people of Hinckley. After months of hard work, important lawyers in expensive clothes
Maggie, can you imagine what it feels like to lose a child? Most of us can't imagine that. A death too terrible to think about. Impossible. Unnatural. Maggie is doing very well. Everyone says so. She's being brave, sensible. She'll be all right. Just a little more time, maybe. The traffic lights changed to green. I sat up straight and looked in the mirror to check what was behind me. I was doing everything right. Everything you're supposed to do when you take your driving test. Check the mirror. Be sure of your stopping distance. Are there pedestrians? Yes. A woman and 2 children. The road ahead, a thin white line. The other side of the road, a footpath. Hands on the wheel in the 10-to-2 position. Everything correct. Strong, sensible hands. A thin white line. 3rd finger, left hand. Jessica's carry cot was on the back seat. Jessica wasn't in it. Jessica was dead. Ben's old A to Z street map was in the pocket of the passenger door. Ben didn't need it. Ben knew where he was going. He'd found the road that he wanted. Probably not healthy. Carrying your dead baby's carry cot around. An empty carry cot isn't very heavy. Just 33 photographs. Married couples often break up after the death of a child. I know that. I'm not stupid. I have a university education. Studied ethics, life and death problems. There are 15 of you in a cave far underground, and the only way out is a hole in the roof. A fat man gets stuck in this hole. It's dark. There's not much air left in the cave. You've tried everything to get the fat man through the hole. You have a stick of dynamite. She'd be 6 now, Jessica. Don't shake your head at me, thinking I'm crazy, some kind of mad woman. Look inside your own head. The games and conversations that go on in there. Don't even begin to judge me. No, I didn't pick up children's dolls and cry over them. No, I didn't want to steal other people's children. I just grieved for Jessica. I did well. Everyone said so. They were really proud of me. They became even prouder of me when Ben left. They told me loudly and often how proud they were of me. I used to play that game, you know. You see a married couple walking in front of you. You imagine the woman gone. You just put your hand in his and go on walking. I went to the beach one Sunday. There was a dad and his kids. A great father. Our eyes met. I knew I would be a great mother. The children would soon learn to like me. But he didn't come back the next Sunday, or any Sunday that summer. I don't hate Ben, but I hate the person that he has changed me into. These lines around my mouth. When your heart starts breaking, you close your teeth, keep your lips tightly shut, keep the screams inside. It shows. They say I'm still good-looking, still a wonderful person, clever too. Should continue my university studies in ethics. Are humans free to choose their path in life? Who decides what happens to us? Is everything written in the stars? There's a park near my place, a play area for children. I noticed this one man came with his little boy every other Sunday. The park, then a pizza, then home to Mummy, until next time. We got to recognise each other. Just a look and a smile. Every other Sunday. Unchanging. His family and friends would learn to like me, love me. Then one weekend he came to our park with her. They went for a pizza together. Home together. A family. What a bastard. Freedom to choose is frightening, don't you think? Do you get moments like that? You know, you're driving along, hands on the wheel, everything correct. Then a picture jumps into your head, out of nowhere. 2 centimetres. If I move the wheel, just 2 centimetres. Of course, Ben married again. Had twins. 2 lovely little baby girls. Sometimes I saw them. A family. Together. The walks out with the pushchair. The days out to the zoo. Then I saw her on the footpath. Her, with a little hand in each of hers. Me, driving perfectly, doing everything right. Not a wrong move. It was dark, you see. So dark. I couldn't breathe. There was no escape. Just a stick of dynamite in my hands.
My home is in New York, but several years ago I stayed in Charleston, South Carolina for a few months. At the end of my visit, I returned to New York by ship. In those days, we traveled by sailing ships. Sailing ships took about a week to sail from Charleston to New York. When the winds and the tides were good, the journey took 6 days. If there was little wind and we had to wait for a good tide, the journey took 8 days. There were no regular days and times for ships to sail. Passengers went to a shipping office. They asked a clerk where ships were going. The clerk told the passengers the names of the ships and their destinations. Then he wrote the passengers' names beside the names of the ships. The captains of the ships looked at this list. Then they sent messages to the passengers when their ships were ready. A ship was going to sail from Charleston in the middle of June. Its destination was going to be New York. I booked a cabin on the ship. Then I waited in a hotel. I wanted to find out the names of the other travelers. The list of the passengers' names was kept in the shipping office. So I went to the shipping office and I looked at the list. There was one name on the list that I knew: Cornelius Wyatt. Cornelius and I were students together at university. A few months earlier, I had heard news about Cornelius Wyatt. A friend in New York wrote me a letter. Cornelius had married a beautiful and charming young woman. I wanted to meet Mrs. Wyatt. I had never seen her. Why were Cornelius and his wife in Charleston? Cornelius was an artist. He painted pictures. He also bought and sold paintings. Old paintings were worth a lot of money in New York. Was that the answer to my question? Maybe Cornelius had found a valuable painting in Charleston. There were many old families in South Carolina. The families had brought many paintings from Europe. Was Cornelius taking an old painting to New York? I was going to find the answer to both these questions soon. We were traveling together on the same ship. A captain sent a message. His ship was going to sail to New York the next day, June 15th. I went to the harbor and boarded his ship. I looked at the list of passengers and their cabins. Cornelius Wyatt had booked 3 cabins. He had the 2 cabins opposite mine and the cabin beside mine. He was not traveling alone. He had 3 ladies with him, his wife and his 2 sisters. The 2 sisters were in a cabin opposite my own cabin. I expected Cornelius and his wife to take the second cabin opposite mine. But who was going to be in the 3rd cabin? I was surprised when I met Mr. and Mrs. Wyatt at last. Cornelius looked ill, and he was not pleased to see me. "My friend, we have much to talk about," I said. "And is this your charming and beautiful wife?" The lady with Cornelius was wearing a veil. The thin material covered her face, and I could not see her clearly. But she said good morning to me politely. She spoke slowly. She had the accent of South Carolina. She did not speak with a New York accent. Cornelius did not speak to me. He took his wife into the cabin opposite mine and shut the door. Cornelius was very rude, I thought. But he is an artist. Artists can be very selfish. We will talk later, but who is staying in the 3rd cabin? Maybe a servant will be in the cabin beside me. 2 men brought a box onto the ship. It was an oblong box about 6 feet long. The man took the box to Cornelius Wyatt's 3rd cabin, the cabin beside mine. They put the box down on the floor while they opened the door. The words Wyatt and New York were written on the top of the box. I watched the 2 men carry the oblong box into the cabin. Then I heard the men talking. The walls of the cabin were thin, and I could hear their conversation. "It smells bad, doesn't it?" said one man. "Yes," said the other man. "What's in it, do you think?" The 2 men left the cabin and closed the door. I wanted to look at the strange box more carefully, but I could not do that. First, I must speak to Cornelius. There were paintings in the box. That is what I believed, but I wanted to see them. What had Cornelius found in Charleston? Maybe the paintings were secret and valuable. I saw Cornelius later in the evening. All the passengers were in the dining room eating dinner. I tried to speak to Cornelius, but he did not want to talk. He was rude to me. Also, he was not hungry. He ate nothing. Was he ill? "Well," I said, "we're old friends, but you're behaving badly." Cornelius said nothing. I was angry with him now. I wanted to be rude, too. "Are you worried about the things in your box?" I asked. "I have guessed what is inside it, but I won't tell anyone." I said the words. Then I wished that I had not said them. Suddenly, Cornelius Wyatt's face became very pale. His eyes were large and bright. Was he ill, or was he mad? Cornelius Wyatt suddenly fell to the floor and was still. He had fainted. The captain and 2 sailors helped Cornelius to his cabin. I went to my own cabin and tried to sleep, but I could not rest. I heard someone open the door of the cabin beside me. Had Cornelius gone into the cabin? Had he gone to look at his pictures? I heard the sound of metal on wood. Was Cornelius opening the box? Maybe I slept a little then. Maybe I dreamt. I thought that I heard the sound of someone crying. Cornelius stayed in that cabin. He did not want to come out. Food was taken to him. He did not eat it. "Those paintings must be extremely valuable," I said to myself. "Cornelius cannot leave them for a minute." Then I thought of another reason for my old friend's strange behavior. Mrs. Wyatt did not stay in her cabin. She came out and talked to the other passengers. I saw her in the dining room. I was very surprised. I had been told that Mrs. Wyatt was beautiful and charming, but she was neither beautiful nor charming, and she was not young. My friend had said that Mrs. Wyatt was from New York, but she spoke with a South Carolina accent. Was this the reason for my friend's strange behavior? Had Cornelius made a mistake? Had he married the wrong woman? Was he sad and upset about this? The door of the cabin was locked and Cornelius did not come out. What was he going to do when we reached New York? Then something happened, and I forgot Cornelius Wyatt's secrets. A few days after we left Charleston, there was a storm. The wind blew and the sea became rough. The waves grew taller and taller. It was a very bad storm. It blew the ship south, back toward Charleston. The wind was very strong. It blew all night. The ship moved from side to side. It almost turned over. The mast broke. The captain could not steer the ship, and it went toward the shore. The ship hit some of the sharp black rocks on the coastline, and it started to sink. Soon, seawater came along the corridors and into the cabins. "Leave the ship!" the captain shouted to everyone. "Quickly, go to the small boats! Do not stop to take anything with you!" I ran out of my cabin and I saw Mrs. Wyatt. I saw Cornelius Wyatt's 2 sisters. The sailors helped us to get into a rowboat. There were 15 of us in the boat. The captain was with us. It was daylight, but black clouds were in the sky. We could see land 2 miles away. The wind was blowing toward the land. We looked up at the ship. It was now low in the water. The ship was sinking. Soon it was going to be under the sea. Suddenly, we saw Cornelius Wyatt. We had forgotten him. Cornelius was pulling the oblong box toward the side of the ship. He was pulling the box toward our rowboat. His eyes were wild. He was terribly frightened. "Mr. Wyatt!" shouted the captain. Get into this boat now! The ship is sinking! I cannot leave my box, Cornelius replied. I must get into the boat with my box. No! Shouted the captain. We can only take you! You cannot bring your box! Quick, get into the boat! The ship is sinking! I cannot leave my box, Cornelius shouted again. Is your box more important than your life? I shouted. Cornelius looked at me. I saw madness in his eyes. He hated me. He hated my question. Yes, yes, yes! Cornelius shouted. He lifted the box onto the side of the ship. As he pushed it over the side, he held onto it. The box and Cornelius fell into the sea. Both the man and the box went straight down into the water. Cornelius and the oblong box did not come up again. Get the boat away from the side of the ship! Shouted the captain. We pulled on the oars and the rowboat moved away from the sinking ship. In a few minutes the ship had sunk beneath the sea. The wind blew our rowboat to the shore. At last we were safe. A month later, I met the captain again. We talked about the storm and our escape from the sinking ship. We talked about Cornelius and the oblong box. It was a mistake to bring that box onto the ship, the captain said. The box brought bad luck to the ship. I did not want to take the box. What was in the box? I asked. The body of Mr. Wyatt's dead wife, the captain replied. Mr. Wyatt's wife died suddenly on June 14th. She died in Charleston on the day before we sailed. Mr. Wyatt had to return to New York, and he wanted to take his dead wife's body with him. None of the other captains wanted to carry a dead body in their ships. Some people believed that it is bad luck to keep a dead person on a ship. But Mr. Wyatt asked me again and again. He became very upset. At last I agreed. He lied to the shipping clerk and the other passengers. He said that there were valuable paintings in the box. So who was the Mrs. Wyatt that I met? I asked him. She was his servant, said the captain. Wyatt loved his beautiful wife very much. Only I knew the truth.
Once there was a king with 10 sons and 1 daughter. Their mother died when the daughter, Elisa, was born. They were very good, happy children. Then the king fell in love with another woman, and he married her. He loved his new queen, and in his eyes she was always right. But she was a bad, jealous woman. She hated the king's 10 sons, and she wanted to send them away. Love made the king stupid. It can make everybody stupid. The poor old king sadly said goodbye to his sons. Then the queen took them outside the city walls. She said some magic words and changed the 10 boys into 10 white birds. Fly away to another country, she said. Make your homes in treetops. Find your food on the ground. And the 10 brothers flew high into the sky and away over mountains and rivers. They came to a great sea, and they made their home in some trees next to it. When Elisa learned about her brothers, she ran away from the king's house. She cried for hours. She walked for days. She did not use her eyes.
she followed her love for her brothers. One day I will find them, she thought, and her love took her near their home by the great sea. Night came, and Elisa fell asleep under a tree. All night the fairies watched her, and no dangerous animal came near her. The next morning she walked again. She met an old woman. "What are you doing here? Can't a brother or friend help you?" asked the old woman. She gave Elisa some good food. Elisa told her the story of her brothers. "I am looking for 10 fine princes on 10 white horses," she said. "Do you know of them?" "10 princes?" said the woman. "No, but I saw 10 white birds this morning. They had gold feet and jewels for eyes. Perhaps they were princes. They were by the river." She took Elisa to the river. Elisa followed the river to the great sea. She saw 10 fine white birds. Their gold feet and jewel eyes shone in the sun. All round her, Elisa saw pretty flowers and beautiful trees. Elisa built a small house from sticks. She found flowers and put them round the walls. When she came back, she found bread, eggs, and fish near the door. That night, her brothers came to her. She cried. "Don't be sad," they said. "We'll tell you some stories." Their stories were funny, and after a time she smiled. Then she laughed. When it was late, the brothers flew up into a tree. "Sleep well, Elisa," they said. "We are watching you." In her sleep, Elisa saw the old woman again. Now she was a beautiful fairy. "Do you want to help your brothers?" she asked. "Yes," cried Elisa. "Of course." "Are you strong?" "Yes, I am strong." "Then listen to my words and follow them. There are gold flowers near your little house. Take some home and put them in water from the river. Wash them many times and then make them into coats. 10 coats of gold flowers, 1 for each brother. But remember these things. First, only you can make the coats. Second, you can only speak after you finish them. Don't speak before that, or your brothers will die. Can you do these things?" "Yes," answered the princess in her sleep, and she woke up. She looked outside her door and saw the gold flowers. She followed the fairy's words, and she worked all day. When the sun went down, her fingers hurt. Her brothers came that night, but she did not speak to them. "Why are you not speaking?" they asked. "Is this the work of a bad fairy?" She showed them her work. She made a picture of 10 coats on the ground with her finger. Then they understood. Her work was for them. She worked and worked. Her brothers watched her. After 2 or 3 weeks, 6 coats were ready. Then one day, when she was by the river, a dog suddenly appeared. It jumped at her. Then other dogs came. They made a great noise and ran round her. A man came through the trees on a fine white horse, with many men behind him. Elisa looked at this man, and she loved him. "Who are you?" he asked her. "Nobody lives here. Where are you from?" Elisa could not answer him. "I am the king of a great country behind those mountains," he told her. "I often come here with my dogs and horses." He came every day and spoke to Elisa. They walked by the river, and he told her about his life. He loved her, and he wanted her to be his queen. But why did she not speak? She only spoke to him with her eyes. In the end, he asked her, "Will you be my queen?" Poor Elisa started to cry. She ran to the gold flowers. "We will take the gold flowers and your work to my house. You can work there. Will you come?" She could not say no, because she loved him. So Elisa and the king took the flowers and the coats, there were 8 now, to his country. Her brothers were sad, but each day they flew high above the king's house. The king had a jealous younger brother. He wanted to be king, and he wanted his brother to die. When the king married, he was angry. "Now the king will have a son," he thought, "and I will never be king." The king could not see inside his jealous brother's head. Because he was good and kind, everybody was good and kind. One day, the king had to leave the city for many days. He had to visit an important king in another country. The queen stayed at home and worked on her coats. Now she had 9, but she had no more flowers. She looked everywhere for the gold flowers. Then she found some flowers in a bad place. The people of the city threw their dead animals there. "I cannot go there in daylight," thought the queen. "People will see me. They will not understand, and I cannot tell them." So she waited for night. Then she went out and got some flowers. The king's younger brother saw the queen that night. He followed her and watched her. He waited the next night and followed her again. "Now I have a plan," he thought. He followed her for 5 nights. The next night he called the great men and women of the city to a place outside the city walls. "Why are we meeting in the dark?" they asked. "You will see," he answered. "You will learn something about your queen. Now, everybody, be quiet. Wait here with me and watch. What does our lovely queen do every night when the king is away? What do you think?" A little time later, the queen appeared and got the flowers. She started to walk home, but the king's brother ran after her. He caught her arm. "See," he cried to the people, "she is a bad woman. Only a bad woman looks for flowers in this place at night. She uses them for bad magic. She plans to kill our dear king, my brother. Why do you think she never speaks? Because she can only say magic words. People shouted, "Kill her! Put her on a fire!" And the king's brother said, "Let's kill her before the king comes back, or she will kill him." He took the queen back to her room. "Tomorrow," he said to her before he closed the door, "you will die." The king and his servants were one day's journey away from the city. They found a place for the night and got off their horses. The king looked up and saw a white bird in the sky. The bird flew down to the king, and the king's horse was afraid. The king shouted at the bird, but it did not go away. Then he looked again and saw its gold feet and jewel eyes. "It is one of the fairy birds," he thought, "one of the queen's birds. She can understand their cries, but I cannot. I think it wants me to go back quickly to the city." The king called his men. "We are not staying here tonight," he told them. "We are going to the city now. We have to go back to the queen. Get ready quickly. I am leaving now. Follow me." The king and his men followed the white bird all night. The bird called to them, "Quickly, quickly." In the city, Elisa worked all night with her gold flowers. The next morning, the people of the city met in the big square in front of the king's house. They looked up at the sky. "What are those white birds up there? Why are they making this noise?" Men brought sticks and built a large fire. The birds flew down and round the men's heads. They took some sticks and flew away, but they could not take every stick. The king's brother went to the queen's room. He brought her outside and into the square. She carried the gold coats in her arms, and the birds flew with her. At the same time, the king arrived at the opposite end of the square. His white bird flew over the people's heads. "It is the queen!" cried the king. He fought his way through the people to the middle of the square. "A fire!" cried the king. "Why are you building a fire?" He looked at his younger brother, and he knew. He was very angry, and the people were sorry. The younger brother turned to the people and shouted, "Do we want her to die?" But the people did not answer yes. They looked at their feet. Then a little boy at the front shouted, "No!" And everybody shouted, "No!" The queen called to the white birds, "Come here, my brothers." The birds flew down to her feet. She threw her wonderful gold coats over them, and they changed into 10 fine young princes. The princes took the king's brother on top of the city walls and threw him to the ground. Boys ran after them and threw stones at him. Nobody saw him again. The king put his arms round his queen. "Speak to me now, my beautiful wife." When you see white birds above you, listen. You will hear them cry, "Quickly, quickly." Now you understand.